we are really seeing New Brunswickers come together and do this as a collective activity. That's why I'm really glad we're not in punitive measures. Rangers aren't out all over the place ticketing people because New Brunswickers are looking after our forests.
The easiest fire for us to be able to extinguish is the one that we don't start in our backyards.
This was a huge parade. I am overwhelmed and just so pleased.
Welcome to This Week Uncut, where we take a look at the week's top stories from CHCO-TV and the Courier. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.
We begin this week with the news that's on everybody's mind, wildfires that are burning across the province at the moment.
Definitely a very scary time for New Brunswickers, especially because there has not been a lot of rain in the forecast whatsoever. You've been covering fires extensively for us all year, even reviews of the Stein Lake fire that we witnessed here in Charlotte County just 2 summers ago. Tell us the latest, where we're at. I also want to encourage everyone at home to visit regularly Government of New Brunswick's Fire Watch website. If you just type that in Google, you will find it instantly. It provides a lot of up-to-date, useful information in real time.
Yeah, so essentially we're going to avoid generalizing or specifics about these fires at the moment because the situation is evolving minute by minute. So things are changing very quickly. But what we understand at the moment is that there are 4 out-of-controlled wildfires. There are 15 active fires. And so essentially what's happening right now is firefighters are working on the ground to kind of contain these fires, to bring them under containment and then eventually bring them to a point where they're out. But they've had trouble doing that, and for the first time in the history of New Brunswick, they've actually brought in resources from outside of the province. So Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, the state of Maine has all come to help New Brunswick. Typically, we're the ones that send help to other provinces and states to assist, but we've needed it this time.
And we've seen people, even though Charlotte County, we haven't been overly affected yet, there are things in neighboring Maine that are on everyone's minds, on people's eyes as well. But we've seen people like Ron Fournier flying to see helicopters, put his helicopter aside for the next few days just to see if he's needed in New Brunswick in any capacity. So we are seeing that typical New Brunswick spirit of wanting to help. But again, as you say, these things are changing by the hour, by the minute. So GNB's Fire Watch website, for those wanting that really up-to-date right now information, just go to it regularly. I've shared a link on my Facebook page if you follow there. But it definitely is something that we don't want to deal with numbers too much today just because this is changing by the hour.
Yes, exactly. And there are some things that New Brunswickers should understand in this very tense moment. And we understand that everybody is very concerned and we appreciate that concern. I just want to start with preparing your evacuation kit. So everyone in New Brunswick at the moment should prepare this evacuation kit. You may not have a fire near where you live, but it can happen in seconds. And we heard from Minister John Herron that their lead time was 30 minutes. Now it's 5 to 10. So that window has quite narrowed. So in your evacuation kit, you should have water, food, flashlight, radio, batteries, a first aid kit, mask for air filtration, prescription medications, pet food, and cash. But also you should have your essential documents, your driver's license, your passport, your birth certificate, your power of attorney, your will. All of that should be also part of this kit. As well, you should take photos and videos of your home and your property so that in the event the property is destroyed by fire, you have a record of what you did have prior to that fire.
That was very useful and something I wouldn't have thought to do, really, when you're preparing for an evacuation. It was really great advice. Those conferences are worthwhile checking out. I'm sure we'll be involved in a lot of them going forward. And we did some great live coverage after the conference, too, to really break down those numbers and what it means for people. But I know from both of us, having covered the Stein Lake fire 2 years ago, I mean, you saw, especially I remember the day that it broke out, going to Carers Ridge and just watching this fire. And it was really my first major fire to cover as a journalist. And to see these pockets of the fire jump up in different places gives you this new understanding of how a fire can spread. I think there's a big part of my brain that just assumed, it makes sense. It spreads out with wind, but really it was jumping. And that was something that's left an impression on me I'll take with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, the embers are what is really at play here. So when trees burn, they release, and when anything burns, it releases embers. And so if there's any kind of wind, it carries those embers, and it will carry it to as far away as it possibly can, and then it will touch something that's not ignited, and it will ignite it. And we know right now that New Brunswick is facing its worst drought since 1986. So it's extremely dry, and this is the second worst wildfire season in New Brunswick's history.
Wow.
So just stressing that it is very, very dry at the moment.
I want to talk to you a little bit about some of your questions from the conference, especially for those at home who maybe didn't get a chance to tune in. When we look back at the Stein Lake fire, and this has to do a lot with things like the trail closures and things that might be little frustrations right now, but when we look back at the Stein Lake fire right here in the Shamcook-Boquebec area, it for sure was accidental. Nevertheless, it was started due to an ATV incident. So these things can happen by accident with the best intentions in mind. And I know that was on your mind, is trying to figure out do we know anything yet about how these fires have broken out, and what did you hear?
Well, I want to start by saying that the Stein Lake fire produced an after-action report because prior to 2023, there hasn't been a lot of examples of large wildfires threatening property and people, and so they have used that after-action report to guide their response to the wildfires that are happening right now. So there's a Charlotte County connection, even though they aren't happening in our community. But yeah, so I wanted to figure out what started these fires. I spoke with a forestry and environmental management professor at the University of New Brunswick. Says 99% of forest fires or wildland fires are human caused, and we know that. I think roughly 1 or 2% of them are caused by lightning strikes, which is what we saw happen yesterday. You'll notice if you go to the map, we can bring it up for you. There's a few purple fires that are there, and what that means is they're just being monitored because they were the site of a lightning strike. So I was curious, and I think all New Brunswickers are curious about how these fires started. The government didn't have a response, and I'm sure that was probably very disappointing for a lot of New Brunswickers. They want to know what's happening, and you heard the Premier in that press conference talk about other New Brunswickers calling about their neighbors having bonfires in the backyard or whatever. Everybody is on edge. They really don't have a lot of answers right now, and you can appreciate why that would be anxiety-provoking for sure.
And I do want to talk about your second question as well, prefacing that by saying I got to know Nathalie really well before she even worked here. I've said this before, but covering the Stein Lake fire. She was working in Global News at the time. It was obviously in this neck of the woods. I can't remember if you were based in Fredericton or St. John at the time, but you were staying here for a few days. We got to know you so well. Unbelievably impressed by her dedication to what she does as a journalist. Fires are also something that, as a journalist, she's chosen to focus on extensively. Looking at the Stein Lake fire when she came to join our team here, you did a lot of research after, a lot of question asking after the fires. I know there's so much relief on the part of the public, but sometimes the role of the journalist, there's a lot of information you have to get out that's critical in the moment. But afterwards, when we have a disaster like this, you look at what went wrong. And that was something that you took a lot of time. There's a 2-part report that Nathalie did on our website. CHCO-TV is home to both CHCO and the Courier newspaper. Nathalie's series, Silent Blaze, for the Courier is excellent. It's worth reading both parts. It talks about why the Alert Ready didn't get put into action in the Stein Lake fire, and you asked why, and you got answers. Some of the work of a journalist actually does make an impression on things like policy and how government goes forward. So it really, I think, puts an important spotlight on the work we do here, not just us, but all journalists. And you really did that with the Stein Lake fire. And maybe it doesn't get the credit it sometimes deserves, I think, but for us as journalists, we see that work that you do actually make an impression on people in places of authority who can make meaningful changes. So your second question in the conference was about forestry and practices in New Brunswick, and whether long-term that could have some implications on forest fires and how they spread. But I'd let you illuminate what your question was and what you got back as an answer.
Yeah, for sure. The forestry industry puts a lot of food on a lot of New Brunswickers' tables. And so while we have lost no structures to date, as of the time of this filming, there is an economic loss, right? If you lose forest, you lose money that forestry companies and pulp and paper mill operators need to run their businesses. So my question was, though, given the conversation I did have with Dr. Anthony Taylor, was after all of this is over, after the smoke has passed, pardon the pun, could we take a look? Are we going to take a look at our forestry practices? Because softwood lumber, which is our bread and butter, and you would have heard a lot about softwood lumber recently because of the U.S. Tariffs. Softwood lumber is the bread and butter of the forestry industry, and so there is a tendency to want to plant softwood lumber, and it's less resilient to the types of things that we're seeing at the moment. Hardwoods are a little bit less vulnerable. So my question was, will we be doing that work, taking a look at that that diversity of trees and biodiversity in the forest to make us more resilient? Because this is not a question of could it happen again? Is when is it going to happen again? The climate in the Maritimes is increasing, but the precipitation is not going to match that. It will increase, but it won't be enough to mitigate how warm our climate is going to be, which is going to mean we're going to have more droughts, which means we're going to have more ignitable forests, which means experiencing wildfires close to your home and close to where you love and live will be more common in New Brunswick.
And what was the feedback that you got from Minister Hare and Natural Resources in particular when you asked him about tree planting in the future and whether it will be more diversified or what the approach might be?
Well, certainly it wasn't the answer that I was expecting. It wasn't super detailed, but they did say, you know, that they do work on that sort of thing, and planting a diverse number of trees is a priority for this government. But I think that question may have come at a particularly difficult time. They're in the thick of it at the moment, but it is something that I will be watching for and that I will be asking for again, given that this is a long-term goal that should be on the top of their minds moving forward.
And I mean, I'd like to highlight that for people at home. We also take into consideration everything you send us. We love getting your emails, your messages, your comments on socials. It doesn't matter where. When you get us your questions, it helps inform what we're able to ask in things like these conferences. Also shows us what's top of mind for people at home. But I think I like to showcase for the people at home the fact that these questions that are asked by journalists also lead to tremendous follow-up on your part. So similar to when you covered the Stein Lake fire and you covered the Alert Ready not being initiated, looking at forestry after this could be something that becomes a long-term focus of you. And when Nathalie joined our team, that was a big part of the reason why, was to have more time. That the Courier offered her the opportunity to do these pieces that can take days, weeks, months, sometimes when you're waiting for answers. But that's what we'll be doing after summer, is taking a harder look at what happened and why.
Yeah, and my work with the Stein Lake fire is not finished. I have a few irons in the fire. Again, pardon the pun, they keep coming to me for some reason. But I'm going to let you take a listen to the responses to my questions during the Wildfire conference yesterday and the closing remarks from Premier Susan Holt.
Thanks for taking my questions. I just want to preface by saying I understand that the focus right now is on getting these fires out, but I'm wondering specifically if you have an understanding of what started the Miramichi and Irishtown fires.
So I've asked that question. Obviously, it was, you know, everyone would be curious to that, but the fire center is that it may sound like the political response answer that it's still under investigation, but the fact is that we don't have a conclusive conclusion in terms of what were the causes in both of those cases at this moment. But of course, the government of Brunswick will share that information once it becomes available. But that's sort of yesterday's story at this point. We're focused right now on making sure that we don't have more of them.
And I can add that at this time, the important effort is to keep the focus on fighting those fires. And that's what we're doing right now. And there'll be time after to try to find out what happened. But right now, we want to tell all the people in New Brunswick, the effort right now must be on keeping the fires under wraps and making sure that we do the best we can to save lives here. So there'll be time after to look at that. Thank you.
And I was just wondering, I spoke with a forestry and environmental management professor who talked about diversity in the forest and how softwoods are a little bit more vulnerable than hardwoods. And I wondered if after this process and after we kind of come out of this phase of wildfires, whether or not the government will be taking a look specifically at its forestry practices to make New Brunswick forests more resilient against wildfires.
It's work that we actually do every day, Nathalie. I will say forest fires or not, we are constantly evaluating our forest fire practices. The minister can expand. The mix of hardwood and softwood is constantly under evaluation, and practices are constantly adopting new technology and new learnings. John, I'm sure you can expand too.
Sure. So under previous governments, this issue has the department had wrestled with is that ultimately on how we manage our forests on today's basis is that where you have softwood stands, we want to have softwood stands. Where you have hardwood stands, we want to be able to do that. If you have in areas that are mixed forest, we want to predominantly do that as well. So that is the methodology in terms of what the department wants to do, and the reason for that is that we have an immense demand for softwood lumber throughout the province. We've got very progressive, well-invested softwood mills, whether that be from Plaster Rocks and Bell Dunes and Doketown and Chipmans, but hardwood is absolutely vital to the New Brunswick economy as well. When you look at the activities that such as companies at AV Nakwik or Group Savoie, they count on having hardwood. So the answer in terms of which wood is preferable, the answer is all of it. We need all of it.
We want the most sustainable, vibrant, healthy forests possible for a whole variety of applications for New Brunswickers, for our ecosystem, for our economy and beyond. So the department is constantly managing to maximize the contribution of our forests to our province and to our lives and to our wellness. Well, I want to thank all the members of the media for coming, for your excellent questions. I don't know how many we got to there. I think probably through a dozen or so different reporters with excellent questions. I want to thank you for helping us to spread the word to New Brunswickers so that they have the information that they need about the state of these fires, about the actions that they can take, whether that's conserving water, whether that's staying out of the woods and not having a backyard fire, not putting their drones in the air, not driving their ATVs on the trails through our Mocdo, maybe not doing their... C'est quoi le burn-out au Festival de Caracat? Les choux de boucan. Il y a des choses qu'on leur demande de ne pas faire au moment et j'apprécie énormément tout le monde qui participe.
So I appreciate everyone who is taking part in this press conference. So New Brunswickers who are watching us and they are sharing this message with their neighbors.
We are really seeing New Brunswickers come together and do this as a collective activity. That's why I'm really glad we're not in punitive measures. Rangers aren't out all over the place ticketing people because New Brunswickers are looking after our forests and looking after each other. And so I will say again, thank you to everyone involved in the response. Thank you to New Brunswickers who are keeping each other safe. Thanks to the media for the role that you're playing. Merci énormément.
I would also like to thank everyone who is working on the front line, our firefighters, our workers in department offices, everyone in government offices, municipalities, and everyone else on the ground. And even if it's during your vacation time, you are choosing to be there to make sure that everyone stays safe. So thank you to reporters for sharing this message. And everyone is helping. As a New Brunswick team, I feel so proud that we don't necessarily need to give tickets because New Brunswickers, they care about protecting forests and their neighbors.
of the whole of the team New Brunswick that is helping us ensure that this wildfire season we have yet to have a loss of a life or a structure, and we all hope and are focused on making sure that continues to be the case for the days to come. Thank you.
That was the responses to two of my questions during the New Brunswick Wildfire press conference and closing remarks from Premier Susan Holt. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to break down what you need to know if you're issued an evacuation advisory.
Many of you are also reaching out to report a fire, to let us know where you've seen smoke or fires, and that's extremely helpful.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
We are continuing with wildfires.
Yeah, so there's a few things that people should know as well about evacuations. So 2 areas in the province have already received what is known as an evacuation advisory. So that is your signal to get ready. So we talked about in the first part of this show about preparing that evacuation kit, what you should have in it. That kit should be by the door. If you get an advisory, that means they're giving you as much notice as possible that you may need to evacuate your home and you may need to leave quickly. An evacuation alert is something very different. It will be delivered by an alert ready. It will come to your cell phone, it will come to your TV, and it will come to radio. And it means right now. It means that the wildfire is an imminent risk to people and property, and that means you have to leave. So please, if you get an evacuation alert to your phone, to your television, to your radio, please get ready to leave. It is a very serious thing, and that's why they're delivering it to you. And you can always, as Vicki mentioned earlier, stay informed about where those fires are on New Brunswick's Fire Watch page. You can also consume credible information from us here at CHCO-TV and any of the media organizations that work in this province. Mm-hmm. It's a tense time for New Brunswickers. I think, if you're issued an evacuation advisory, you're going to feel on edge about the situations, and that's okay as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it's even not really feeling like we're in the thick of it right now here in the southwest of New Brunswick, having the memories of the Stein Lake fire experiences from just 2 years ago makes us all very on edge, because we know how quickly the very building we're in right now became an evacuation center. So we would go down the hall and see just a room full of people. They had beds there, the Red Cross was set up. This was 2 years ago, and that will be imprinted on my brain forever. So we do know how quickly it can become urgent. And I remember watching that fire, seeing smoke in the distance, driving towards it, as journalists do. We don't go the other ways. And seeing it just develop in real time in just a matter of minutes to hours. And so I can't imagine what people are going through who have the evacuation kits by their door right now. But we've definitely been in that situation right here not that long ago.
Yes, for sure. And the other thing that you should know is that they will also post all this information on social media as well. I know not everybody is online, but I would encourage, as the government has, to check on your vulnerable neighbors. Mm-hmm. If you know that someone in your neighborhood lives alone, is elderly, has a medical condition of any kind, please go knock on the door and let them know what is happening, because we do know that not everybody is online. And it is important to know that, right now the conditions are extremely difficult. And so firefighters are fighting through what is known as record temperatures across this province. We were told yesterday that 3 firefighters have been hospitalized due to heat exhaustion. So they're in there fighting these really, really, really hot fires, and then they're coming out of the woods to 40-degree temperatures. Mm-hmm. It is extremely difficult. And so last night, even at St. Stephen Council, we heard a plea from the fire chief there, Sean Morton, just stay out of the woods. That's the other thing that people need to know. There is a ban on activity in wooded areas. If you don't need to be in there, don't go in there. And the trails locally in some parts of Charlotte County are also closed.
And it's worth checking your municipal websites as well for what might be rules in your area. Also, evacuation centers, they might have more up-to-date information of different things that your community is doing to be there for citizens at the time. I know Minister John Herron of Natural Resources yesterday was talking about just this desperate need for rain that we have right now. And he was saying 5 milliliters of rain gives them one day, saves them one day of, and that was really the best analogy he could come up with for what the amount of rain means to helping with forest fire prevention. But we've had such a dry summer the last little while too, so we're hoping for rain to come in the forecast, and there's been little pockets of it, but not enough to do anything significant.
Yes, and right now there's a lot of questions about the industry that has been prevented from operating on Crown lands. Forestry industry in particular has been out of the woods for 5 days, and we understand that that's also very difficult. People make a living doing that work, and people are also on social media talking a little bit about seeing logging trucks coming in and out of logging roads, and we understand that there is allowances for that, exceptions under the current ban with a lot of provisions. You have to have fire spotters, a lot of fire spotters, you have to have water right beside the truck, and you have to have a permit to do so from the Department of Natural Resources. So if you're seeing that kind of work being done, it is not because they're not allowed or they're violating the ban. They may have an exception. And there's also the issue of private land. So the ban is for Crown land only. So that's land that is public land. Private land is not yet restricted. So if you see people doing work or doing things on private land, they are allowed to do that under the current state and the current bans that are in place in the province.
We're seeing with neighboring Nova Scotia. I was in Halifax last weekend, and as soon as you cross the border to Nova Scotia, there's a sign that's $25,000 for people that want to venture into the woods. And then we're looking up to Newfoundland. If you're watching the Canada Games, there are sporting events being postponed, beach volleyball, things that just can't take place right now because the air quality and what's going on. And that's also a good reminder for people that might have any breathing issues too. I know my mother's a very active gardener, but right now she is staying inside because she's had some respiratory issues, and it's just too dangerous.
And there was also some questions about blueberry farming that takes place largely on Crown land. They are not allowed currently because of how they operate on Crown land. They cannot do that work. And I know that blueberries are something that Charlotte County people and residents have a fondness for because of its connection in Penfield. So I just wanted to address that as part of what we're talking about here today. They are aware of the limitations, but they are having conversations about how they can safely get folks back to work, back in the woods. But right now things are a bit too dry.
There was a question in the conference too yesterday. I can't remember which journalist asked about blueberry farmers, but it is always interesting to see that these questions, whether they might seem regional to you, are still important. And New Brunswick is a small enough and a very accessible government in a lot of ways that it allows us the opportunity, especially with the number of conferences they're having, to ask the questions that are important to you. So if you have them, please know that you can always email us at news@chco.tv. Everyone on the news team sees your email, so if it doesn't have to be about forest fires, you can really email us about anything. We read them all. It goes to Nathalie, goes to me, goes to Patrick, goes to Flo. We all see them, and it helps us inform what we focus on.
Let's take a listen to the responses to questions about the blueberry and forestry industry in New Brunswick.
While Crown lands are still closed, we are under very strict protocols allowing certain operations to continue as exceptions. These are variances. We're looking for fewer situations to have variances in, not more. But we're doing this to minimize the economic impacts and support workers to support those folks who are trying to provide for their families. This includes specific cases where mills are facing critical inventory shortages and other exceptional circumstances. In these cases, we have temporarily permitted overnight trucking of wood that was already roadside, with the added precaution of enhanced fire equipment and site monitoring requirements. That type of equipment would be to ensure that they have tanks of water in tow. They'd have additional personnel that would be fire spotters. So those are some of the precautions that would be included in that particular type of situation. Similarly, we have launched a permitting process to allow wild blueberry growers to harvest wild blueberries on Crown land leases under certain conditions, and or use Crown land roads to access their private wild blueberry fields. Nous avons aussi mis en place.
we also put in place a specific authorization process to allow the blueberry growers to harvest wild blueberries on Crown lands, leases, under certain conditions, and to use Crown land roads to access their private blueberry fields.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to take a closer look at Charlotte County and what's happening here.
Shows me that our community on both sides of the border want the parade to continue. So in that regard alone, it's definitely worth all the little extra work that we had to do to make it happen.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth. There have been some forest fires closer to home here in Charlotte County, however, on the other side of the border. Tell us a little bit about what you know is going on in Baileyville at this time.
Yeah, so we're just going to touch quickly on that. It came up last night at St. Stephen Council. Baileyville is experiencing an out-of-control wildfire, and they continue to work on containment. But the municipality has signed a mutual aid agreement with Baileyville because of the extension of its boundaries through municipal reform. Baileyville is now in the same way that St. Stephen is to Calais. It is to areas like Little Ridge. So they want Western Charlotte's fire department wants to be able to help them out in the event that they need that help, and vice versa. So they signed that agreement. They approved that last night. They sent it off. I want to touch on a couple of things. Eastern Charlotte has issued a water conservation advisory. If you live in Eastern Charlotte, please use your water sparingly. Do not wash your cars, your driveways, your homes. Do not sprinkle your lawns. I know the grass is brown, but please do not do that. As well, no filling of swimming pools. The province is also asking people to conserve water, take shorter showers, don't do small loads of laundry or frequent loads of laundry. Cooling centers are available in different parts of Charlotte County. If you contact the town of St. Andrews, you can come to the building that we're in right now, the W.C. O'Neill Arena, for cooling. The Ross Memorial Public Library is also open, and their hours are available on our website. All of the hours of the buildings I'm about to mention are on our website. And in St. Stephen, you can go to the Garceland Civic Center for cooling, Wi-Fi, and charging. And I would also recommend that people sign up for their local alerting system. Now, this is different than the one we mentioned earlier in the show. These are local alerting systems in which you have to subscribe to them, but they will provide you with any alerting information, enhanced monitoring for local EMO, evacuation centers, all of the things that we're mentioning here. So for St. Andrews, Eastern Charlotte, Grand Manan, Fundy Shores, all use Voyant Alert, VOYENT Alert, and so you can download them on your personal device, your phone, Android or iOS, which is Apple. And St. Stephen uses the Alertable app. So I would encourage everyone to download those and stay in touch with information as soon as you can.
One thing we could do, and this will depend on whether we get emails from viewers at home, again, news@chco.tv. We hear from a number of you. We'd love to hear from more. We've done workshops in the past. For instance, during COVID-19 with ArriveCan, we did a workshop here at the arena just to show people how to put it on their phone, had people bring their documents. Border agents came up and helped too. It was a really neat thing to do for the community, just because you can struggle with that. I struggle with technology all the time. I get it. So if there are enough of you that feel you need help with putting an alert system on your phone, we could organize that, no problem. Just let us know via email and we'll do that.
And we also mentioned earlier that not everybody is online. The Alertable app will go to your landline phone as well. So it will ring and it will deliver you the message, whatever message that happens to be, if you subscribe, but you have to subscribe. And I would be happy to be part of a workshop to help people sign up.
We could do it here, I am sure, at the Garceland Civic Center in St. Stephen. They'd be wonderful hosts as well if that was something that is wanted by the public. It's not a problem at all. And sometimes it's these moments that really make you realize this is an initiative we should do as a community. I'd also like to highlight, from having spent so much time in this very building during the Stein Lake fire, that these evacuation centers, they were our neighbors. And it was really, for anyone anyone who might be a little nervous about going, and it does have this feeling, I know that it carries a lot of weight, those feelings of going to an evacuation center, but it was really, as hard as that time was here in this building, we saw people playing board games together, neighbors sitting together, there was food ordered, coffee was on the go, and sometimes it's nice to just be with your neighbors when you're having a time that many people are feeling fearful. You don't know if you're going to lose your home, what's going to happen next, when you'll be able to go home. So they actually, I know that it's intimidating at times to feel like you have to leave your home and go somewhere where you're not comfortable, but from my experience having been to the center here, it was really quite a community-minded and beautiful place to be, despite how hard the experience was.
Yeah, so we're going to turn the page away from some of the more devastating things and go to a little soft moment between communities. You were at the International Homecoming Parade.
Of course, and you know why this rings true, why this parade is so important, this crossing of borders, is representative of fire emergencies in this part of the world. For as long as I can remember, St. Stephen and Calais shared fire trucks. I think there was only a ladder truck on the Calais side at one point. So this community has had decades and decades, centuries really, of experience helping each other out despite borders. And I know this has been a really trying year in history in terms of a trade war, political tensions, border tightenings, all these things coming into play again. Not that we haven't been through them before. We've been through them with COVID. We've been through them with 9/11. It's just a different moment in history right now. So I was very, very brought to tears, actually. So was Patty Anderson, one of the organizers of the parade last weekend. I was in St. Stephen for the International Homecoming Parade. It's part of International Fest that goes on for over 50 years between Calais and St. Stephen. These two border towns have celebrated that it's one community despite the international border between the two. This year, however, we almost did lose the parade because in the St. Stephen side, there had only been 12 entries leading up to just days before the parade. So council in St. Stephen made a hard decision that they were going to just cancel the parade this year. Many people have expressed frustrations, fears crossing the border. A lot of Canadians, as many of you know at home, just aren't crossing anymore, whether they're fearful, just taking a stance, supporting Canadian. They have their reasons. They're not all, you can't really put them all under one reason as to why they're not, but many people have their reasons as to why they're not going over the border as often as they are. Sometimes it's just a matter of price too. Our dollar's worth a lot less, and that can be a choice that people make as well. So the parade did almost get canceled, and we were at the council meeting where that was talked about, and it was a really tough conversation that council had to have about the possibility of ending this over 50-year tradition between the two communities. That council meeting was obviously on TV. We air council meetings, and the community responded. They rallied, they got together and said, no, we don't want to lose our parade. So overnight, entries just from different businesses, nonprofits, even individuals coming up with floats. And in the end, there were over 50. I think it was 51 votes in total, entries in total, across the international border. That's not just all the entries. This is the number that used their passports and crossed the border to bring the parade from the United States to Canada. So this year, I've been on the Calais side when the parade crosses Canada into the United States. This year, they came from the United States, crossed Ferry Point Bridge, and came into St. Stephen. And I think it's sort of like the Courier newspaper. When you think you're about to lose something and you get it back for your community, the amount of people that were lining the streets, the amount of tears I saw streaming down people's cheeks was unbelievable. There was a reporter from the Boston Globe there who had come up to cover it. And it was just this beautiful moment where we realized, I think we all do realize that here, that Ottawa and Washington are one thing, New Brunswick and Maine, and especially our border towns, are another. And while many of us are not crossing over the same way we were before, we still love each other. And we'll get through this moment in history. And the theme of this year's International Week was Let's Hug It Out, or We Hug It Out. Because everyone knows there's been some tension. And that's definitely what we saw happen.
Perhaps we should put Prime Minister Carney and Donald Trump in their Work It Out t-shirt together and see what happens. I mean,
I will build that float. I will build that float.
They should take a lesson from New Brunswick and Maine and the International Homecoming Committee because it is a time of tension and trepidation and fear, but I think that this is a great example of how the two communities can come together.
And listen, when you see the Boston Globe come up to cover an event like that, you know that we can lead the way. There are sometimes that border communities and small communities, we're the ones that rise to the occasion, because maybe people with more corporate agendas and bigger political maneuvers might be quiet in these moments. We know it's important to us, and so we stand up for it. And I think it's really beautiful. I've been brought to tears many times this year by the border communities and how we are facing this moment. Saturday was just what I needed. I know we're going through another tough time right now, but it was really beautiful. It brought Patty Anderson, one of the co-organizers, to tears as well. Here is my interview with Patty Anderson after the International Parade between Calais, Maine and St. Stephen, New Brunswick on Saturday.
So basically there were 51 floats between both sides of the border that participated fully in the parade. Might have been a few more. Then we had a few on each side that had to drop out and a few on each side that had to join in. So this was a huge parade. I am overwhelmed and just so pleased.
It's been a tough year globally, and we almost thought we lost the parade this year for a number of reasons. What does it mean to you to be able to make this happen so last minute and with such an incredible turnout, not just of floats, but of people watching?
Number one, it shows me that our community on both sides of the border want the parade to continue. So in that regard alone, it's definitely worth all the little extra work that we had to do to make it happen. Between our customs friends on both sides of the border being so willing to do the extra. I mean, they have people on vacation too. So we're very grateful to them, grateful for everyone that put time and effort to be in the parade and worked behind the scenes as volunteers, as employees, whatever. We just are so appreciative.
Many of us are been brought to tears today just by this experience. I think you have to be connected to this area to truly understand what this means. What did it mean to you to see so many people emotional at this year being able to pull this off?
It shows us that our community between the two borders really are one family, and we care deeply. We have relatives, we have friends, we have businesses that we enjoy being part of, and events really throughout the whole festival, but even at other times during the year. So to me, I guess friendships take work. That's the bottom line. Friendships and sharing that takes work, and people showed today just what that means. I was overwhelmed. And then seeing the numbers is one thing, but being up here and being able to see every float and entry that came through, people outdid themselves. It's just so appreciated. It really is. And so I was 14 during the first festival that came to, when this came to pass. I have a charm on my charm bracelet that's hands across the border that a young woman from here made. Did you have one? And I'm telling you, so just seeing all the people that came out and participated, and I hope there was a good crowd, but I'm not up there, so I don't know. But I know it means a lot to everyone, and I think our community spoke very loud today by being part of it.
You said it very well. Friendship takes work, but we know how much work you put into it, Patty, so thank you from the bottom of our heart on behalf of everyone.
Do you want to hug it out? I do. Thank you, guys.
That was Patty Anderson, co-organizer at the International Homecoming Parade between St. Stephen, New Brunswick and Calais, Maine. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be joined by Aidan Raynor to reflect on his summer at the Courier.
And it's being able to get that adaptability early on. This was some more, I would say more than just like an internship. That this provides a lot of I wasn't just getting coffee, as much as many internships are that.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth. We are now joined by Aidan Raynor, who has been with us for the summer here at the Courier and CHCO, because look at you, you're on TV as well. Aidan came to us this summer from Concordia, where you finished up your second year last year. You're going into your third year as the editor-in-chief of the Concordian. But we are so proud to say, as we know your career is going to take off, that we were the first to give you your media start. So let's look back on your summer here at the Courier, and what were some of the highlights?
Certainly, interviewing the governor of Maine in the Beaverbrook was pretty cool. Being the only, reporter in the province to do it.
When you look back on your summer, what are the takeaways that you'll bring to the Concordian and back to the big city when you return to Montreal?
Oh, certainly how valuable this experience is for young journalists that are trying to get a start in their career. You know, they're so. I go to school in the second biggest city in Canada, of Montreal, and you know, the internships at the CBC there, for example, are, you know, quite competitive and yada yada yada, and there are certainly less of options for students to actually get internships and get experience, and you know, there's this sort of like dialogue around, oh well, there's no internships and this is just, I can't go anywhere, but there is. CHCO exists. You know, the opportunities like this are super unique, and like being able to bring like CHCO's ability to bring young, motivated, kind of aspiring reporters to the county is like remarkable, and like I think something that I took away with is like how valued it is. You know, like Tuesday night bingo. What the heck is that? That is so unique to Charlotte County, and I think something that I will remember fondly forever, certainly. But yeah.
Aidan and I had this very profound conversation about bingo this morning and how it really empowers us here at CHCO in the Courier, because, you know, when you think about newsrooms, to have the community be the true supporter of what we do here. I know that there's different things, like there's commercials, there's advertising in the newspaper, there's grants and things that we put together to be able to do what we do, but a huge part of it is bingo, and the community itself are the ones that buy the tickets and play. So it really is a place that is built for the community, by the community, run by the community, and it's so beautiful, and so beautiful that you saw that as an opportunity and as a place to learn from and bring with you to wherever your career takes you next.
I want to know what your favorite story was that you did all summer.
You do have water from Black's Harbor on your desk that you use as bookends.
That was kind of interesting, yeah. Not the most delicious story I've done, I guess, but the Bill C5 stuff was quite fun. I had the chance to go up to Fredericton at Officer Square there to talk to Chief Akagi of the and Chief Roy Ron Tremblay as well, about like their and Susan Holt was there as well. That was a good. Forgot about that. And got to like talk to them a little bit about what they saw in the legislation and how that will impact kind of resource extraction in the province and their kind of integrate. I thought that one was kind of fun. God, there were a fair bit, but that one was certainly up there.
I'm giving props to you right now because we also had another conversation this morning about you, and because you are the editor-in-chief of the Courier, and you've been working with Aidan very closely throughout the summer, and he was talking about Governor Mills and your sit down, and how he was so, I don't even know what the words are, but that you were up there with him in Fredericton and he said, sit down and do the interview. I've got the camera. And there's the editor-in-chief that's saying, please, go do it. You landed this interview, do it. And how incredible you've been as a mentor as well. It's been really special. So that's worthy of a shout out. But that was a neat conversation we were having about you when you weren't even here.
I knew my ears were burning.
Yeah.
I think, young journalists learn by doing. There's no other way to do it. I mean, you can go to school and you can learn all of the technical things that you need to learn. But when you get out in the field, it's a very different thing. And much of what I've learned about being a journalist has been working and doing and practicing. So it's my philosophy to just let them do what they need to do and be there if they need a place to fall in that moment.
And what a score for us. I mean, the World Press Freedoms Canada Student Journalist Award winner of this year. On top of that, when we get a message from you saying you're curious about applying here for the summer, I mean, I did a Zoom call with you in October last year, I think, when you were overseas for school in the UK. So that's a message for people at home too. If you're young and you're interested in being a part of news, there is a place. People talk about the industry is dying, but there are places like this that are innovating, and people like Aidan that see it as an opportunity. So again, that's the email, news@chco.tv, and we let you sort of forge your own path forward. What were some of the things you really wanted to explore that you're proud of?
Definitely being able to kind of get all aspects of the industry. Like I did most of my stuff is written anyways for the Courier online. But I'm able to be on This Week Uncut and then other shows, like I did some news stuff. And it's being able to get that adaptability early on. This was I would say more than just like an internship. That this provides a lot of like, I wasn't just getting coffee, you know, as many internships are that. And this is something that I'll be communicating and preaching on my soapbox to anyone who will listen back at Concordia. And also I'm the representative for Ontario and Quebec at the Canadian University Presses, and so that's the association, the National Association of University Newspapers. And at this year's awards and like the big national conference, you know, I'll be speaking about, back on my soapbox about like how awesome this opportunity was, you know, and creating your own position. Like this wasn't something I found on Indeed. You know, I sent an email and was like, hey, you should probably have me. I'll be quite an addition, you know, and like being able to coach people through creating their own positions is like, will be my like kind of hill to die on the rest of this year.
And for the record, we don't even have coffee here for him to fetch.
No, we walk the honeybees together.
We do this as a group. I'm going to be tremendously sad to see you go, but I'm excited for your future, and I know that it will be very bright, and I have no doubt that you're going to do very well in this industry.
So when people want to follow you, as we tend to do in Charlotte County, we get attached. We hope you will be back to visit. I know your grandma lives here, so you will be, but if we want to follow your work online, while you're back in Montreal, where can people at home who want to stay in touch with Aidan Raynor's work follow you? Instagram, Facebook, or wherever?
Instagram certainly is kind of like probably my most, I guess, LinkedIn would be annoying. But Aidan J. Raynor is my Instagram handle. I post kind of not very often, but every once in a while I'll dump a couple pictures of what I've got going on, and they're usually pretty random of stuff on the job. So yeah, that would be probably the most current place to follow me. Or Aidan Raynor on LinkedIn would be at least the most corporate way to follow me.
Well, I have no idea how I'm going to explain it to Maud, our work dog. So when she comes to look for you next week, it's going to be definitely hard on her because she won't understand the why.
It'll be hard on me. I'll be looking for Aidan.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful summer. We're going to miss you so much. We know you'll stay in touch. We're proud to be a part of your journey wherever your journey goes. And you have friends in us for life. Call us whenever you need advice, and we might do the same to you when you're the bigwig and we need some help and some good advice.
Who knows? Might find myself back here in Charlotte County.
We would be more than blessed and more than happy if you did. Thank you all at home for joining us today on This Week Uncut. We'll see you next week. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.